Have you ever pondered upon the origins of Indian executive control over administration? Let's take a leap back in time to the era of the British Raj, a period that significantly shaped the administrative structure of India. Executive control, in those days, was largely a colonial construct, with the British Crown firmly at the helm, dictating policy and procedure. At the heart of this system was a cadre of British civil servants, whose administrative prowess was instrumental in managing the vast territories of British India. This structure, though efficient, was inherently autocratic, leaving little room for Indian involvement in the decision-making process. However, the winds of change began to blow with the advent of the Indian Independence Act of 1947. This pivotal legislation marked a profound shift in the balance of power. The British Crown was no longer the omnipotent ruler. Instead, the reins of control were handed over to the Indian government, marking a significant milestone in the journey of India's administrative evolution. This historic transition was not without its challenges. The fledgling government was tasked with the monumental responsibility of governing a newly independent nation, while navigating the complexities of an inherited administrative system. But it was this very challenge that laid the foundation for the Indian executive control we know today. The Indian government, taking the helm, began to reshape the administrative machinery in its image. It sought to strike a balance between maintaining the efficiency of the colonial system and infusing it with a democratic spirit. The focus shifted from autocratic control to a system where the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary would work in harmony to govern the nation. Thus, the seeds of Indian executive control over administration were sown, ready to grow in a newly independent nation. As we move forward, we'll delve deeper into this fascinating journey, exploring how executive control evolved over the decades and what it means in the current scenario. So stay with us as we unravel the story of Indian executive control over administration. But how did the Constitution of India shape this executive power? The Constitution of India, the longest written constitution of any sovereign country in the world, meticulously outlines the executive power in its various articles. The executive power of the Union, as per the Constitution, vests in the President of India. While the President is the nominal executive authority, the real executive power is exercised by the Prime Minister and his Council of Ministers. The President, as the ceremonial head of the state, is bound by the advice of the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. However, the President does have certain discretionary powers, such as sending back a bill for reconsideration or in the case of a constitutional crisis. Now, let's turn to the Prime Minister, the de facto executive authority. The Prime Minister leads the Council of Ministers, which is collectively responsible to the House of the People. The Prime Minister is the link between the President and the Council of Ministers and plays a pivotal role in shaping policy and decision-making. The Council of Ministers, led by the Prime Minister, is the real workhorse of the executive branch. They are responsible for the day-to-day administration of the country, making policies and implementing them. The Constitution provides for three types of ministers: cabinet ministers, ministers of state, and deputy ministers. The cabinet is the core decision-making unit and comprises the most senior ministers. It's important to note that the Constitution also outlines a system of checks and balances to prevent the misuse of executive power. The judiciary can strike down executive actions if they violate the Constitution or the law. This intricate system ensures that the executive power is not concentrated in one entity but is distributed and balanced. The Constitution, with its detailed provisions and careful balancing act, forms the backbone of India's robust democracy. The Constitution, therefore, became the guiding light for the exercise of executive power in India. But how has this executive control evolved over the years? Since India's independence in the late 40s, the country's executive control has undergone a significant transformation. It has been a journey of learning, adapting, and continuously striving for better governance. Let's dive a little deeper into this. In the early years after independence, India adopted a more centralized approach to executive control. The central government held the reins and had the final say in most policy decisions. This was largely due to the need for a strong and unified government to lead the country through the turbulent post-independence period. However, as time went on and the country stabilized, there was a gradual shift towards a more decentralized form of governance. The power began to trickle down, with state governments receiving a greater share of authority. This shift was not abrupt, but rather a result of numerous policy decisions and administrative reforms. One of the key policy decisions that spurred this shift was the introduction of the Panchayati Raj system in the 90s. This system of local self-government brought the power closer to the people and allowed for more localized decision-making. This was a major step towards decentralization, and it marked a significant evolution in India's executive control. Over the years, several other administrative reforms have also contributed to this evolution. These reforms aimed at increasing efficiency, promoting transparency, and reducing corruption in the administration. They have led to more power being vested in the hands of state governments, allowing them to make decisions tailored to their unique needs and circumstances. So what we see today is a far cry from the centralized approach of the early years. The power no longer lies solely with the central government. Instead, it is shared among various levels of government, each with its own set of responsibilities and authorities. This evolution, therefore, has been a journey of learning, adapting, and striving for better governance. Now let's delve into the current scenario of executive control in India. Today, the dynamics of executive control in India are as multifaceted as the country itself. The balance of power between the central and state governments is a complex dance, each entity striving to maintain harmony while asserting its authority. The central government, seated in New Delhi, wields significant power, setting the national agenda and driving major policy decisions. It is the backbone of the administration, shaping the country's trajectory in economic, social, and international spheres. On the other hand, state governments hold the reins of local administration. They are the ones on the ground, implementing policies and addressing the unique needs of their regions. From education and health to agriculture and infrastructure, the state governments have a direct influence on the lives of the people. In this delicate balance, the role of bureaucracy is crucial. The Indian Administrative Service, the Indian Police Service, and other such entities act as the connective tissue between the central and state governments. They are responsible for executing the policies, ensuring that the decisions made in the corridors of power reach the farthest corners of the country. However, this is no easy task. The challenges faced in policy implementation are numerous. There are issues of resource allocation, corruption, bureaucratic inefficiencies, and sometimes a sheer lack of political will. Moreover, the diversity of India's demographic and geographic landscape adds another layer of complexity to this process. At the same time, rapid digitization and increasing transparency have started to change the face of the Indian administration. The use of technology in governance, popularly known as e-governance, has been a game changer, bringing the government closer to the people and making public services more accessible. Yet, the journey is far from over. The Indian administration continues to grapple with these challenges, striving to streamline its processes and increase its efficiency. The current scenario, therefore, presents a complex interplay of powers, responsibilities, and challenges. So, what lies ahead for executive control in India? As we glance into the crystal ball of governance, several trends emerge that could shape the future of executive control in India. Decentralization, bureaucratic reforms, and digital governance, these are the potential cornerstones of the coming era. Firstly, we see a growing emphasis on decentralization. This is not just about transferring power from the center to the states, but also about empowering local self-governments. The goal is to bring decision-making closer to the people, to ensure that policies are more attuned to local needs. However, this shift requires a delicate balance, maintaining national coherence while allowing for regional diversity. Next, we come to bureaucratic reforms. The Indian administrative machinery, a legacy of the colonial era, has often been criticized for its rigidity and inefficiency. There's a growing consensus that we need a more flexible, performance-oriented bureaucracy. This might involve changes in recruitment, training, performance evaluation, and even the structure of the bureaucracy itself. Then there's the digital revolution. As we move towards a more digital world, governance must keep pace. Digital governance has the potential to make administration more efficient, transparent, and accountable. It can streamline processes, reduce corruption, and improve service delivery. However, it also raises new challenges, from digital literacy to privacy concerns. Despite these promising trends, there remain significant challenges. Greater transparency, accountability, and public participation are still needed. Executive control cannot be an end in itself. It must serve the larger goal of good governance, of creating an administration that is responsive to the needs and aspirations of the people. The future of executive control, therefore, holds the promise of a more responsive, accountable, and effective administration. It's a vision of a governance system that balances power with responsibility, that is adaptable and forward-looking, that is rooted in the realities of today, but also reaches for the possibilities of tomorrow.